Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, for you joining me. And today I'm going to read and give commentary notes to DAF 78A of Menachot. So I'm just going to give a quick overview of the key points. This DAF delves into intricate halachic discussions primarily concerning meal offerings Menachot and the precise measurements and components, particularly in the context of Toda, the Thanksgiving offering. And Menachot Kohen Gadol, the high priest meal offering, the key points and arguments are the total loaves and their quantity. The Gemara discusses the derivation of the requirement for the Toda offering to include 10 loaves of leavened bread, chometz. This is famously derived from the superfluous letter Yud in the word Tiyena, they shall be, which has a numerical value of 10. A powerful discussion arises regarding the 10 loaves of unleavened bread matzah that also accompany the Toda. The verse Al cholos lechem chometz, with cakes of leavened bread, is expounded to teach that just as there are 10 leavened loaves, there are also 10 unleavened loaves. There is a debate about the shiur, the measure of flour for each loaf. Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi initially suggests the yud could indicate 10 half kav, but Rava refuses by pointing out that the verse consistently refers to tenths of an ephah. This establishes that each loaf is made from a tenth of an ephah. The Gemara also explores the derivation for the other types of unleavened bread, leavened loaves, wafers, etc., that accompany the Toda, showing that they also adhere to the tenth of the ephah measure. The high priest's meal offering, the Menachot Kohen Gadol, the Gemara addresses the Menachot Kohen Gadol, which is unique in that it is entirely burnt on the altar with no portion given to the Kohanim. The discussion clarifies that this offering is poached in water, similar to the Menachot Chinuch, inauguration offering of an ordinary priest, based on the juxtaposition of verses. A significant point is made about a high priest who has not yet served as an ordinary priest. Such a high priest would bring 2/10 of flour for his offering, one for his inauguration as high priest, and one for his daily Minchat Kohen Gadol. Offerings where the altar versus Kohanim are stronger. The Mishnah on this daf introduces the concept of cases where the altar receives the entire offering, meaning no portion for the Kohanim, and cases where the Kohanim receive the entire portion, or the entire offering, meaning no portion for the altar. The Gemara clarifies the various examples for a burnt offering and olah. While the meat is entirely burnt, the Kohanim do receive the hide. For libations and sachim, which are poured, they are not poured directly on the altar, but into the shittin that holds beneath the altar, so the Kohanim don't receive anything from them. The Gemara debates whether this counts as the altar receiving the Nazarite's peace offering. The Sugya touches upon the Nazarite's peace offering, establishing that accompanying meal offerings must also follow the measurements. E.g. 10 Jerusalem kav and a quarter log of oil, similar to the Toda. Blessing on broken meal offerings, a Gallic note. The Rav Yosef introduces a halacha regarding the blessing made on a chavitza, a type of porridge or crushed bread. If it contains a kazayit, an olive worth of breadcrumbs, the blessing is hamotzi. If less, it is b'mei minei medonot. He connects it to a bride stating that one bringing meal offerings in Jerusalem that are broken into pieces will say shechianu, a blessing of thanks for new or special occasions, and then hamotzi when eating them. This implies that even broken pieces retain their bread status for blessings. In essence, Menachot 78a meticulously analyzes the biblical verse to derive precise measurements and procedures for various meal offerings, highlighting the intricate logical and linguistic methods employed in Talmudic interpretation. So let's dive into the actual text now. Rav Yitzchak bar Avdimi, they shall be tiyena is written. Tiyena kasiv, they shall be tiyeh. Tiyena is written. The early commentators disagree with regard to the explanation of the statement. Rashi and Rabbeinu Gershom Hagolah says that the extra yud whose numerical value is 10 in the word tiyena alludes to the 10/10ths and serves to include the bread of thanks offering in the requirements Tosfot. With two instances of the letter yud, the superfluous yud, whose numerical value is 10, is interpreted to indicate that the loaves of leavened bread of the thanks offering must be prepared from 10/10ths of flour. The Gemara raises objections, say that the superfluous yod indicates the loaves prepared with 10 half kav. Ema Sarah Kafize. Rashi says that Kafize half calf. And the Gemara's question is that the measure might be 10 half calf. The later commentators explain that Rashi is actually referring to measures of 4/10 of a calf. And the Gemara's question is whether the measure might be 10 measures of 4/10 of a calf each. The reason for this suggestion is that 2/10 of an ephah are equal to 2/3 of a seah, which is equal to 4 calf, and dividing 4 calf into 10 loaves equals 4/10 of a calf per loaf, and that's from the chavruta. A smaller measurement than 10/10 of an ephah. Rava says one cannot say this since the verse habitually spoke of tenths of an ephah and not other measures. And there's a picture here, if you have the stone instructions on page 181, there's a replica of the set of measures used to measure parts of an ephah. They seem to be of different sizes, the jugs. The Gemara continues its analysis of the Braita. We have learned that there are 10/10 of an ephah of flour for the loaves of leavened bread accompanying the thanks offering. From where is it derived that there are 10/10 of an ephah for the 30 loaves of matzah? The verse states, with cakes of leavened bread, after mentioning the 3 types of matzah accompanying the thanks offering. Verse 7, 12 to 30 indicate that one must bring the matzah in a measure corresponding to the measure of the loaves of leavened bread. The Gemara asked, but can a matter that was derived by comparison then come back and teach the matter by comparison with regard to consecrated matters? Since halacha that the loaves of leavened bread of the thanks offering are prepared from 10/10 of an ephah is itself derived by comparison to the 2 loaves. One can then derive from it that the matzah loaves of the thanks offering consist of 10/10 of an ephah. Well, I suppose halacha that the loaves of leavened bread consist of 10 loaves made from 10/10 of an ephah is not derived solely by comparison to the 2 loaves, rather derived from itself. As halacha that there are 10 loaves is stated in the verse concerning the thanks offering, and from another matter, and any halacha derived from itself and from another matter is not considered a comparison. Consequently, the halacha with regard to the matzah loaves may be derived from, and the Gemara asks, this works out well according to the one who says that a halacha derived from itself and from another matter does not constitute a comparison, and according to the one who says that a halacha derived from itself and from another matter does constitute a comparison, what it says to say. The Gemara responds, according to that opinion, the halacha that each loaf is prepared from 1/10 of an ephah is derived from that which the verse states with regard to two loaves. You shall bring Leviticus 23:17, which is a term of amplification that serves to teach that the loaves of leavened bread and of the thanks offering consist of 10/10 of an ephah of flour. Since this halacha is derived not by comparison but by amplification from the 2 loaves, one can derive the halacha with regard to the matzah loaves by comparison to loaves of leavened bread. Now I move to the Mishnah. Hamiluim hayaba'in kamatzah shabatorah chalas ukukigin ukuricha. The loaves that accompany the ram of the inauguration of the tabernacle would come parallel to the 3 types of matzah that accompany the thanks offering: loaves, wafers, and loaves poached in water and made with oil. Leviticus 8:26. The loaves of leavened bread that accompany the thanks offering were not brought with the ram of inauguration. The loaves that accompany the offering that the Nazarite brings upon completion of his period of Nazarite would come with only 2 parts. The bread accompanying the Nazarite's ram consists of 6 2/3 tenths of an ephah, as made into 20 equal loaves of matzah, composed of 10 wafers spread with oil and 10 loaves of flour moistened in oil, all of it oven baked. This measure is a halacha transmitted to Moses from Sinai. 9:23 of the 3 types of matzah that accompany the thanks offering, namely loaves and wafers. No, namely loaves and wafers, but there is no matzah poached in water. See Numbers 6:15. Consequently, the loaves of the offering of the Nazarite are from 10 kav of fine flour according to Jewish measure. As told in the previous Mishnah, that each type of the loaves of matzah come from 5 kav of flour, which equals 6 2/3 tenths of an ephah according to the wilderness measure. As each type of the loaves, the matzah comes from 3 1/3 tenths of an ephah. The Mishnah teaches that the loaves that accompany the ram of the inauguration of the tabernacle consisted of the 3 types of matzah brought with the thanks offering: loaves, wafers, and loaves poached in water and made with oil. The Gemara asks, if From where are these matters derived? Rav Chisda said that Rav Hama Bar Guria said, it is derived from that which the verse states, and out of the basket of unleavened bread there was before the Lord, he took one unleavened cake, and one cake of oiled bread, and one wafer. Let's get 826. Granted, cakes are cakes, and wafer is a wafer, but what is oiled bread referring to? Is it not referring to matzah potion water made with oil? Rav Avia objects to this. One can say that oiled bread is referring to cake of oil. So what's the footnote? Inter the Mishcha. The early commentators know that the oil cakes are not cakes poached in oil, but congealed oil formed in a round loaf like bread. And it is this form that is referred to by the verse as bread. Rashi in the second explanation, Rashi manuscript, Rabbeinu Maragola. In his further explanation, Rashi explains it as a chunk of thick dough fried in oil. Rather derive it as Rav Nachman Bar Chisda taught in the name of Rabbi Tavla. Now the verse states, this is the offering of Aaron and his sons, which they bring to the Lord on the day when he is anointed. The 10th part of an ephah of fine flour for a meal offering perpetually, half of it in the morning and half in the evening. But a pan shall be made with oil when it is posed, and you shall bring it in. In broken pieces shall you bring the meal offering for a pleasing aroma to the Lord, and the anointed priest that shall be in his stead from among his sons shall bring it. In Leviticus 6:13-15, one can ask, and what have we learned with regard to Aaron's sons, the ordinary priests, from the instructions for the high priest on the day that he is anointed? Rather, the verse juxtaposes the meal offering brought by an ordinary priest during his inauguration with the meal offering brought by the priest when he is anointed. The early commentaries disagree with regard to the manner of this derivation. Some say that the inaugural meal offering brought by ordinary priests for generations is juxtaposed with the high priest's daily griddle cake offering. Since the meal offering brought by an ordinary priest is considered an inaugural meal offering, it can be derived that the loaves brought during the inauguration of the temple included matzah poached in water. And that's from Rashi manuscript, Rabbeinu Hagola. Several difficulties have been raised with this explanation, including citation from Tosh Kohanim, and expressly stated that the inaugural meal offering brought by the ordinary priest does not include matzah poached in water. They propose instead that the intention is to juxtapose the meal offerings of the inauguration of the tabernacle with the high priest's daily griddle cake offering. From this is derived that the loaves of the inauguration itself included matzah poached in water, because the meal offerings of the inauguration of ordinary priests did not achieve mechubeses. This juxtaposition teaches that just as the meal offering brought by the high priest when he is anointed is poached in water, so too the meal offering poached by an ordinary priest during inauguration is poached in water. Similarly, the loaves brought with the ram of the inauguration of the tabernacle included loaves of poached in water. Considering the matter of the high priest's meal offering on the day of his inauguration service in the temple, Rav Chisda says, a high priest who approaches the temple service, a priest who has never served and was appointed to be the high priest, brings 3 meal offerings of a tenth of an ephah each. First, he brings a tenth of an ephah as an inaugural offering, as an ordinary priest does upon beginning his temple service. Then he brings a second tenth for the high priest dedication offering, and a third tenth for the high priest's daily griddle cake offering. All 3 tenths are prepared in the same way. Rabbi Mesefer Mikdash 5:17 on the day that he is anointed. The day that he is anointed is required to bring 2 meal offerings consisting of 2 tenths of an ephah, one for the fact that he is anointed as the high priest and must bring the daily meal offering of the high priest, and one for his inauguration. Rav Ashi says he requires 3 tenths of an ephah, and they do not disagree. This will not consider referring to a high priest who already performed the temple service in an ordinary priest. Accordingly, he has already brought a meal offering for his inauguration as an ordinary priest. He therefore brings only 2 tenths of flour, one for his inauguration as high priest, and one for the daily meal offering of the high priest. And that one Baravashi is referring to a high priest who has not yet performed the temple service as an ordinary priest. He must therefore bring 3 tenths, one for his inauguration as an ordinary priest, one for his inauguration as a high priest, and one for the daily meal offering of the high priest. The Mishnah teaches the loaves that accompany the offering that the Nazarite brings upon the completion of his period of Nazarite would come with only 2 parts, parallel to the types of matzah that would come with the thanks offering. i.e. loaves and wafers, but not matzah poached in water. The sages taught in a Braita. The verse states, with regard to the loaves brought with a thanks offering, if he sacrifices it for a thanks offering, then he shall sacrifice it with a thanks offering unleavened cakes mingled with oil, and the unleavened wafers spread with oil, and the cakes mingled with oil of fine flour poached. With cakes of leavened bread he shall present his offering with the sacrifice of his peace offering for thanks. Leviticus 7:12-13. His peace offering serves to include the Nazarite's peace offering in the halacha that its accompanying mean offerings must consist of 10 Jerusalem calf and 1/4 of a log of oil, just like the measurements required for the cakes and the wafers of the thanks offering. The Braita continues, one might have thought that the verse indicates that the meal offering of the Nazarite's peace offering is equivalent to the load of the thanks offering, considering all that is stated with regard to the matter of the thanks offering, and that one brings 3 types of matzah consisting of 15 Jerusalem calf and half a log of oil. Therefore, the verse states with regard to Nazarite's peace offering, and a basket of unleavened bread, loaves of fine flour mingled with oil, and unleavened wafers spread with oil in Numbers 6-15, to indicate that the Nazarite's meal offering consists only of matzah loaves and matzah wafers, not matzah poached in water. The Gemara clarifies what is the biblical derivation by which matzah indicates that loaves poached in water were not brought. The Papa says the verse indicates that the Nazarite brings a matzah specifically from an item of which it's stated matzot. This serves to exclude loaves poached in water, of which it is not stated matzot. What's the footnote? The later commentators say that the reason matzah poached in water is not referred to as matzah, as loaves and wafers are, is that flour that has been poached in hot water cannot become leavened in any case, as indicated by the discussion Pesachim 39b, and that's the Alayona. In addition, the school of Rabbi Shmuel taught unleavened bread is a generalization. Loaves of fine flour mingled with oil and unleavened wafers spread with oil is a detail. And the Torah says generalization. The detail generalization includes only what is in the detail. Therefore, the loaves and wafers are included in Nazarite's meal offering, while other items are not. Thank you for listening, and all the best. Bye.